Okay, we continue with great stories on the Social Impact Show with me, Sam Marshall, powered by Social TV. What we do, as you know by now, my friends, 9 to 12, Mondays to Fridays, we get to talk about the positive things that's happening in this amazing, amazing country of ours. And the conversation continues. Now, as you know, collaboration has the power to change lives. Bonitas Medical Fund, Gift of the Givers, Sibanye-Stillwater Mining Company, and the Department of Health in the Northwest have joined forces to upgrade the Boitekong Community Health Center Clinic in Rustenburg. You would have seen that story. We did that story on day 24. We did that story every day on our socials. We tell you one positive South African story, and thousands of you have started responding to it. We really, really appreciate that. And so we highlighted this story a week ago. As you know, we're doing every day, we do a story until we reach 1 million South Africans on TikTok that really appreciate this country. And this is one of the stories we highlighted. So these organizations came together in Rustenburg. Now, this partnership not only revamps the healthcare facility, but also ensures sustainable access to clean water through a newly installed borehole. These efforts mark another step in addressing healthcare accessibility and infrastructure challenges in South Africa. Joining me now is Principal Officer at Bonitas Medical Fund, Lee Callakoppen. Lee, good morning and thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Sam, and good morning to your listeners. Very pleased to be joining you here today.
And what a great and you know, as we were talking before we started this conversation on air, you asked me off air how I'm doing. Yeah. And I said, I get to spend the morning with guys like you that are fanatical, guys like your organization, that are fanatical about changing the lives of people. And I think that's a great way to spend the morning.
Most definitely, Sam, and I'm so privileged to start my Monday this way because it really recenters you in terms of being able to focus on making a difference. And as the second largest open medical scheme in South Africa that's been around for 40 years, we haven't forgotten in terms of the importance of making a difference, not only to the members, but the communities in which we operate. Because, yes, we live in a great country and we need to, as leaders, in terms of our stewardship responsibility, make that difference. And to the point of what you've mentioned in terms of one such initiative, the most recent one, is the difference that we've made in the Boitekong community in terms of revamping the health clinic in conjunction and collaboration with Gift of the Givers, which is our strategic partner in enabling us.
The MTS.
Yes, what an amazing man in terms of enabling and identifying such projects. And we were very fortunate this past week to open the new Boitekong community health clinic in conjunction with Gift of the Givers, Department of Health, and Sibanye-Stillwater Mining that made it all possible for us in terms of being able to actually provide access to greater healthcare within the Rustenburg community and access to cleaner water. As we know, we've got some infrastructure challenges, and this makes a big difference.
You know, on a side note, before we talk about the impact in the community, I think for the longest time, you guys have kept it a great secret. I'm very fortunate that I get to see a lot of the work that Bonitas does. Yeah. But I don't think South Africans know how much social impact work you actually do in communities. Yeah. I mean, this is a high-profile project, but there's just so much you guys doing.
Most definitely, Sam. You know, at our core, obviously, is towards our members in terms of being able to promote access to health and wellness. We've taken a conscious decision a number of years ago with our board in terms of moving away from just sick care to actually proactive health care. And you can't separate the actual member that belongs to our fund from the community and society in which they operate. Very important. Very important. And to that end, you know, we've identified specific areas. So if one reflects in terms of the most recent one, we've been very active over the last now. We've got a large population of people within the mining sector that's members of our scheme that lives in those communities. So by way of example, if one considers the recent one, we've got close to about 40,000 members. That's just the principal member. And, you know, their families extend to additional 6,000. So we have to make that difference. But to the point around, this was only one of a few that we've done. So if you'd allow me just to give you a bit of a rundown, we've last year also done the Kwebeni in the Eastern Cape, which was also an activation of a borehole. And therefore, as the important aspect around it is that for about 8 years, people didn't have active running water. And by actually
Can
doing
you imagine
with
your
the
daily life not having running water?
100%. And
That's
if you look at it
crazy.
in terms of at this particular school with the kids to have access now to running water, for the families to have access to the running water, it makes a huge difference in terms of the quality of life and the improvement of healthcare. And once again, for us, in terms of within the Eastern Cape area, there's close to about 65,000 of our members that's directly impacted, because one can't separate the access and the impact of health. We saw it during COVID.
Yes, definitely.
So one needs to look at it. Another aspect for us, or another project that we also launched, was the Calafong Hospital, where we revamped it. In Calafong, in the north of Johannesburg, in Tshwane, which is an academic hospital that has got close to about 1,000 beds. It's a teaching hospital. And just upgrading that facility and giving
Makes
access
a
to
massive
healthcare
difference.
makes a difference in terms of, we very seldom, or COVID taught us, we need to recognize our healthcare workers and creating an enabling environment for them to practice and give quality of healthcare. By us as Bonitas, along with Gift
And
of the
that
Givers,
lifts everybody up, right?
lifts everybody's spirits up. So that was another one. But the most heartwarming one for me personally, Sam, is about a year ago, we ran an audiology project out in the Eastern Cape as well, and more so in KZN, where we actually did screening of young students in terms of listening or checking in terms of their hearing disabilities. And we did it with Gift of the Givers, and we screened close to about 16,000 young learners to see if they could hear properly. And that affects the quality of education that they
Your
receive.
ability to learn.
The
And you're not
ability
even
to learn.
aware of it.
100%. And, it was so heartwarming going around at the schools and seeing how these youngsters are being tested and identifying if there is some hearing disabilities and improving the quality of life. So those are just some of the initiatives that we have done over the last 24 months. One other one, if you'd allow me to mention, is the work that we've done with the Mahato Health Science University, and that was the upgrading of that facility for actual student doctors. And you think that, doctors are at university, they also need access to healthcare. So, they also get sick.
It's something we don't think about, eh?
We neglect it. So
we don't think about that.
in conjunction with Gift of the Givers, we upgraded the clinic, put forward a medical response vehicle so that while they are studying, that they can also access healthcare. That's a nice, heartwarming and proactive initiative that we drove with Gift of the Givers.
Yeah. Lee, as you talk about these projects, the thing that comes to mind is that, so how do you then see the continued impact? Because you've now, is this all once off, or is this continuous relationships?
Sam, it's actually, as what you've mentioned, probably something that we haven't spoken much about, but our partnership with Gift of the Givers has been going back as far as 2018. When we started with it, and we took a conscious decision at that particular point in time in terms of identifying a organization that has got strong ties in terms of making a difference, not only in South Africa, but within, internationally, globally. But our focus is South Africa in conjunction with them. So it's an ongoing one that each year we identify projects that is meaningful and we respond to it. And so we're hoping to continue the relationship and identifying projects where we can make a difference and bring about social upliftment.
But you know what I love about this project we're specifically talking about at Boitekong?
Yes.
Is that Dr. Robin Whittaker write about trust-based partnerships, and she talks about if each party identifies what their value proposition is in the relationship, that you can collaboratively work to make real impact. And I think what I love about this for the longest time, Lee, and as I look at the story, is that the impact space is very silo driven. Everybody's working on different things. Sometimes they work in the same community and they don't even talk to each other. Sometimes they do the same thing in a community and they have different metrics and different numbers. But the fact that you had Bonitas, Gift of the Givers, Sibanye-Stillwater, and the Department of Health all coming together, all finding commonality around the project, all identifying what sustainability looks like in this model and what success looks like, for me, speaks wonders to the fact that we can effectively collaborate.
Most definitely, and I think, for the longest of time, that is the key messaging that, especially from a Bonitas perspective, that we've trying to put forward, is that through the power of collaboration and social cohesion, we can make a difference, where public and private partnerships can come together and work hand in hand in terms of making that difference, Sam. One is faced, as what you said, off air when we joined, we hear a lot of criticism and critique why things cannot happen. But this and some of these projects is clearly illustrative of where, if there's a willingness and there's an engagement between multiple partners, whether it's private and public, we can make a difference. And as you've mentioned, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman is a strong advocate in terms of saying, let's just get things done. Let's roll up our sleeves and make it happen.
One of the other things that I must admit that I've seen as a social impact journalist now for 12 years, and I won't mention any brands. They come in, lots of fanfare, and then they disappear. And so a computer class, after 3 years, is now standing empty. The computers have not been serviced. In actual fact, the school has been vandalized and all that kind of stuff. How do you, you've now mentioned 3 or 4 boreholes that you put in place. How do you now make sure that that borehole remains a reliable water source for the community? Is that where the partnership with the Gift of the Givers, for example, has real value?
Sam, spot on. When we took
because it's not a Bonitas job.
No.
You're a medical aid scheme.
100%. That's such a key fundamental point that you've raised that speaks to the heart of our governance aspects as a medical scheme, because at the end of the day, the funds belong to our members. And when we sat back and critically reviewed in terms of who we partner with and what is the processes associated with sustainable impact, those were key aspects that we considered. And with Gift of the Givers and through the infrastructure, the intent is not just to go in, here's a ball, and thank you very much, we'll see you next time. The maintenance elements that goes along with these projects is critical, and we as Bonitas requires assurance from our partners that it's not going to be neglected, it's not going to be vandalized, it needs to be maintained. And with the partnership of Gift of the Givers, by way of example, they've got a very strong technical team that goes out, assesses the environment, that secures the environment, and further to that is the transferring of skills of people in the community to maintain those. So it also leads to downstream job creation, if I can put it that way. And that is the importance for us in terms of having the strategic partner with Gift of the Givers, that you ensure that there's sustainable maintenance thereafter. And we continuously check up on these projects to ensure that it continues to operate.
I always tell people that when they talk about, but why does organizations focus on one area and why don't they enter into other spaces? I always go, in the past, I think one of the biggest challenges were that you would find an organization, maybe not a Bonitas, but somebody at the same scale, they would try to do too much, and they would put in little bits of money, and there'll be no lasting impact or real change because they're trying to be too many things to too many different organizations. And I know as a leader you would have had those conversations as well. But now we're seeing really smart conversations around the table to say, guys, let's be really strategic about how we help a community. Instead of taking all these bits and put it everywhere, let's focus on a community, let's make systemic change, and then let's move on. Because the idea is not to keep on giving to the same community, but it's to empower community. Once they're empowered, is then to move on.
Most definitely, Sam. I think that key word that you utilize is in terms of a systemic change, a lasting change. And that is exactly the approach that we're taking. We're very selective, we're very thorough and complete, and we're also very conscious in terms of how does it make a difference to our members who actually contribute. It's one, I would sit back from and look at it from a scheme perspective. These are the limited amount of funds that we have, but it's members' funds that we can say, how do we best expense what we can afford to make and bring about social upliftment and social change to our members and those communities.
Because we now know we are the company we keep. So in the Edelman Brand Trust report, they talk about this deferred trust model where because you are doing good, your members are aligned to an organization who reflects their own personal values. And that is important. But I think the challenge has always been, and maybe this is a question I would ask, we are now sitting in studio and we're talking about it. There was this old idea back in the day that let's not tell people the good that we do because we don't want to seem like we're bragging. But in 2025, we almost have to tell them so that there's an alignment of values.
Most definitely. There must be congruency in that sense. And, I think it's so needed within South Africa right now. And to create hope and purpose for people in terms of making that difference. So I agree totally with what you're saying, Sam, is that we need to share with our members in terms of the difference that they are making in terms of being stewards. They are making that difference. We are purely stewards in terms of entrusted with those funds to make a difference. But it's our members, it's ordinary South Africans that's making that difference.
Yeah, extraordinary South Africans making those difference. Lee, where can people go as we wrap up to see more of the stories? Because I want people to know this, that Bonitas actually does a hell of a lot of social impact stuff. Even, I don't know in terms of the landscape how big you are in terms of your competitors, but you do a hell of a lot of good in the community. And I think we've always been the advocate to say that once a person knows which brands are plowing and helping in communities, you almost have to vote with your wallet. You have to go because you now know it's not a business that's for profit. It's a business that has a purpose for that profit. And I think that's important.
It's so beautifully summed up, Sam. Yes, not for profit, but a business with a brand promise, and that is being a medical fund for all South Africans. At the end of the day, it's about promoting health and wellness. And that's what we're remaining steadfast to in terms of our philosophy, is to bring affordable healthcare to members. And in terms of just answering your question, we're the second largest medical scheme in South Africa, with 40 years going. I think if you ask anyone who Bonitas is, they'll be able to identify.
Yeah.
It's been long. To answer your question, where can you see more of it? On most of our social media pages, but on our core in terms of bonitas.co.za, people can visit us on our website and read more about our products, the work that we make, or the difference that we make in the communities in terms of social impact. And further to that, also in terms of understanding, in terms of how can you actually make your medical aid affordable for you without compromising the quality of care that you require.
And I think that's important. We get flack, and I say we, me and Pillow and the team, we get flack for what people consider to be soft interviews, right? But the point is there's enough media out there that will ask Bonitas the tough questions around your dividends and your shares. We want South Africans to understand that you guys are doing good, that this country, some of us don't have the option to go to America. We're not following Trump. This is our home. This is our home. This is where we live. And our job is very simple. Our mandate every morning is to wake up and tell South Africans about the good that's happening in this country. And I want to thank the guys at Bonitas, take my hat off to you guys for this amazing collaboration that is really going to change the community of Boitekong at the health center. And if you've missed it, Bonitas Medical Fund, Gift of the Givers, Sibanye-Stillwater, and the Department of Health came together to upgrade that facility. So that is a great South African story. Lee, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, your listeners.
9-1